The scholars say that Hebrew and Aramaic should really be considered as separate languages, but I have another theory. I found something very interesting based on which Dead Sea Scroll texts are in Hebrew and Aramaic. Jubilee says that Hebrew is the original language of the world, but is that the same language we call Hebrew today? My argument aims to postulate that Aramaic is the original Hebrew, and that Hebrew as we know it is really a derivative off of the original Hebrew, aka Aramaic. Most of the Dead Sea Scrolls are in the so-called Hebrew and Aramaic, but what's interesting is that when you actually observe when the text would have originally been written, you find that most texts written in Aramaic predate most texts written in Hebrew in the Dead Sea Scrolls. For example, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Lamech, Noah, and Abraham found in the Genesis Apocryphon, and the Testament of Levi are all in Aramaic. These writings, if written by who they claim to be written by, all originally predate every writing written from the Book of Judges to Malachi found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. But every book from the Book of Judges to Malachi is in Hebrew in the scrolls. What I'm saying is simple. If you put the scrolls in order of when they would have originally been written, and then attach the language they are written in based on the Dead Sea Scrolls, you find that there is a clear division of what time period Aramaic was used and what time period Hebrew was used. So with that said, here is my theory. Aramaic is the original Hebrew, referenced in the Book of Jubilees. That's why all the early writings are in Aramaic. When the Babylonian captivity occurred, the Jews adopted a version or dialect of Aramaic, which is the Hebrew language we know today. The Essenes kept the books written in their original languages and copied them in their original languages because they viewed these early Aramaic writings as the original Hebrew language and as extremely sacred. But the writings that were meant to be for public use, they copied in Hebrew. This would explain why Moses' writings, which according to my theory would have probably originally been written in Aramaic, are all in Hebrew in the scrolls. Instead of Hebrew replacing Aramaic, Aramaic just branched off and became another Semitic dialect. I don't always trust rabbinical writings, however, I find it interesting that one of them said Adam spoke Aramaic. This idea fits well with my theory. Also, it is believed that Jesus Christ spoke Aramaic. It seems likely that the Messiah would have spoken the original language of the world. I hope that makes sense. Shalom and stay perky.